And we're live.
Greetings, wherever you are on this planet called Earth. My name is Brother Minister Zumbi, and I'll be one of your hosts for tonight's episode of Precise Thinking, along with Brother Sekou, who's probably in a much warmer place than I am tonight.
Absolutely.
So, tonight we're going to go into a little history. For those of you who have followed this show along with Get On Code, late last December we did a show called the 360 Deal, which kind of gives you the present state of the music industry, particularly affecting hip hop and R&B. What I'm going to talk about tonight is something that some of you may or may not have heard of. It's called the Harvard Report. And I'm going to be talking from tonight's book. I want to make sure I get the title up: Anatomy of a Record Company by Dr. Logan Westbrooks. Okay. And in this book, it has the complete Harvard report. Okay. Now, why is this document important? Because you need to understand how, and I know everybody is running around using the term culture vultures, this, that, and the third, but there's a difference between being a vulture and being a bandit. And I go back to our ancestor, Bobadell Jones, who taught us the term culture bandits. Okay. Now, what the Harvard Report is, I'm going to read a little bit from it here. The title is called The Harvard Report, a study of the soul music environment prepared for Columbia Records groups. Now, this report was submitted to the president of Columbia Records at the time, Clive Davis, who has been known to uh, nurture and discover talent, everybody from Santana to Whitney Houston, and served as a mentor for P. Diddy when he moved Bad Boy from Uptown to Arista Records. Okay. The Harvard Report, the way I've interpreted and how I've read it, is really how do we get control of this? At the time, they called it soul industry. Okay. And okay, perfect. That's the other book. Okay. And the thing about the Harvard report, allegedly Clive Davis had approached Harvard Business School to do a report on the soul music industry. They did the study, submitted it back to Columbia Group. Now, here's the crazy part. In the Harvard report, it said we want a 5-year window to where if we can dominate 15% of the soul music industry by 1978, we can own and control the industry. Now, to kind of give you a framework of what the year 1972 presented for Columbia, you just had Melvin Van Peebles do Sweet Sweetbacks, badass song. Okay, that movie did nearly $30 million independently, which led the other major films to do other movies, particularly Shaft, which was done by Gordon Parks, and then his son Gordon Jr. Was the one who directed Superfly and had a hand in writing the screenplay for that. Okay. Also, you had The Godfather, which basically saved Paramount Pictures. At the time, its doors were closed. They actually had to pawn Judy Garland's slippers for $25,000 just to keep operating. Okay. Also, in the Harvard report, now I'm still using 1972 to give you a framework. The Harvard report identified two major competitors that they would have to deal with in order to get control of the soul music industry: MOTOWN Records by Berry Gordy and STAX Records, which is now being operated by Al Bell. A lot of people think that Al Bell founded STAX. He didn't. It was actually a white brother and sister team who were Memphis natives who wanted to create a studio to present, I guess you would say, the sound of the South. And from STAX, you were able to get, and that's one of the artists that STAX produced, Rufus Thomas, along with his daughter Carla Thomas. But what was groundbreaking about STAX is being in Memphis, Tennessee at that time, you produced an integrated band called Booker T and the MGs. And I think those who are older will remember their classic hit Green Onions. Okay. And what's interesting about MOTOWN and STAX at the time, as they dominated the soul industry, they both began moving into film. In 1972, Berry Gordy had just did a distribution deal with Paramount Pictures, where they released their first movie, Lady Sings the Blues, and highlighted Diana Ross, who was famous for being in the Supremes, to highlight her debut as an actress, where she portrayed the legendary Billie Holiday. On the flip side of that, you have STAX Records, who just put out in 1973, they just put out their documentary Wattstax, which is a reflection of the Watts Festival, which is kind of I guess you would say, an anniversary of the Watts Rebellion that took place in '65. So you had this cultural festival that would go on in August of each year. What you see in Wattstax is from August of 1972. The release date was February of 1973. Okay. And as a sidebar, some of you may or may not notice, but the people who distributed, directed, and produced Wattstax had to change the ending to avoid a potential lawsuit. Okay, and I'll explain. At the time, Isaac Hayes had just finished the soundtrack for Shaft. The movie was being distributed by MGM, Metro Goldwyn Mayer. One of the songs that was used in the Shaft soundtrack was Soulsville, which, if you look at the original Wattstax, at the end, he performed Soulsville. Well, MGM wanted to sue Stax Records, Wolpert Pictures, and I want to say Columbia Pictures, okay, just because of that one song. So they had to go and use another song at the end. But if you pick up I think it's the 30th anniversary edition, the 2003 edition, they actually put the footage back in as part of the original documentary. Okay, so that gives you kind of a framework of what was happening, particularly with Black music in that 1972, 1973 framework. Now, let's make sure I have my notes ready. Okay, and like I said before, the urban legend was said that Clive Davis was the one who commissioned the Harvard report, but that's never been substantiated. I think the reason why that rumor persisted is because at the time he was president of Columbia Record Group. Some of the conclusions that they found from the Harvard report: one, the existence of market opportunity in the soul music industry. Columbia Record Group lacked the necessary apparatus and infrastructure to cultivate the soul market. What they said was because of racist practices by major record labels, it allowed mom and pop independents along with Stax, Motown, and Atlantic Records to come in and pretty much create a cottage industry or a niche market for soul music. Columbia Record Group had to, quote unquote, significantly modify and, quote unquote, substantially broaden its current efforts to cultivate the market and captivate on the market opportunity. The report also tried to define soul music, which I found interesting. And also, what also took place was this. Before this Harvard report came out, a lot of white artists were notorious for doing covers of famous black artists. Okay. I think one of the more famous or infamous covers that was done was Elvis Presley's Hound Dog, which was originally performed by Big Mama Thornton and included Buddy Guy in the background, in the band at the time. You can watch that video on YouTube. Her rendition is kind of more of a jazz blues type of vibe, as opposed to the quote unquote rock and roll that Elvis did with that. Other covers, Pat Boone did Little Richard's Tutti Frutti. So those are examples of what was being done prior to 1972, when black artists would go out there and have their material stolen. And a lot of times they wouldn't even get their own royalties for someone doing the cover on their album, even though the cover went into the top 10, top 40 of Billboard. A lot of these artists never received a dime. And that was the type of practice that was going on prior to 1972. And the fact that a lot of the music labels, the record labels, it was basically mob controlled. Okay. And if you want to go further into that, I recommend the book Hitmen, where it talks about the relationship between the music industry and organized crime. Okay. And it still mentions this nasty little thing that nobody wants to admit to. Payola. The way I would define payola is, let's say if I have an act with a very hot track and I'm trying to give it as much airplay as possible, I may go to a local radio station. I may know the disc jockey, and inside the sleeve of the 45 or the 33 RPM, there may be some cash, there may be tickets to the Caribbean or some other type of incentive to make sure that record gets as much airplay as possible. Now, the report says that they couldn't find any evidence to substantiate that existed in the soul industry, but they knew it was a wide practice. And I think there was an eventual investigation done by the federal government where they wanted to crack down on this thing called payola. Okay. And we call that the dirty little secret. Now, and I want to get this into the record. Make sure you see this here. Okay, let me back it up. And if it's not clear enough, okay, the top photo here, what you see is an all-black marketing team for Columbia Record Groups. These guys were the ones who implemented the Harvard report. Okay, and in this picture, it includes the author, Dr. Logan Westbrooks. All right. The bottom picture here, and I'm trying to see if you can see it. Okay, the bottom picture is 5 years later, 1978. Who do you see? Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, along with Clive Davis, Kenny Gamble, and Leon Huff. Gamble and Huff, who founded Philadelphia International Records. okay, that gave us not only Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, but its former lead singer, Teddy Pendergrass. They are showing, after the 5-year implementation of the Harvard report, they're just showing their first gold single. Okay, so you can see that this report really wanted to change who dominated soul music. Not only who dominates soul music, but who controls its content, who controls its distribution, and some things in here as part of its how can I say this? Okay, as part of its plan, and I'm just going to read this to you. It talks about the public and the industry image in terms of how do you get the public to buy favor into Columbia being involved in the soul music industry, if you will.
Okay.
Okay. The positive feedback that is generated at the station level and from the recipients for these type of action is phenomenal. CRG, which is Columbia Record Group, will have to start thinking about engaging in similar public spirited endeavors, if not for the simple reason that these actions should be taken, then they should be done for defensive strategic reasons. Besides, they are tax deductible. The concern that record companies should start putting back some of the money they have been taking out of the community for so long is getting strong enough that it is rumored a coalition in Harlem is being organized to boycott record companies that do not engage in this. Okay. And what they were talking about was a competitive record label. I think it was Atlantic Records. So they teamed up with the local DJ in Philadelphia, WDAS. And what they did is they passed out over $3,000 worth of free turkeys around the Thanksgiving, Christmas time. And so that was part of the strategy of buying favor with the public. And it's all here in the Harvard report. Okay. You have any questions, Brother Sekou?
The part that's intriguing me, man, is a lot of us don't realize that universities will do research for organizations at no cost. No cost or very little cost if you have to buy, some items to go along with the research. So it's intriguing for us to see that a currently major record label used some of the free resources to take us over. To take over the music that was predominantly in the hands of mom and pops and small record labels. So they did a Walmart on us. And they use free resources. So let me say that again. If you need some research done, the research labs at many of the fine universities around America. I'm here in the Hampton Roads area, so I know Old Dominion University does that type of research. Hampton University, Great Hampton University, does that type of research. Virginia State University, and they do research. And so you just need to contact the research department and say, hey, I want to do this research for my business. And that will in turn become a research project for the research students. Incredible. Took free resources and took us over.
Yeah, and in most cases they yeah, and like I said, they chose the best because nobody knew about Wharton, nobody knew about Stern at New York University or even Columbia University. So they went to the best business minds, if you will, to Harvard Business School and had this report done. Not to mention the fact that Columbia put together an all-black marketing team to implement it and execute it. So we weren't the masterminds behind it, but we had a hand in it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And probably thought they were doing music justice. They probably thought they were doing music in the music world and creativity justice.
I don't know what they thought.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know. All right, brother. Give us some more goods, man. Tell us some more goods. So, code keepers, we're gonna have to come up with a term for those who watch Precise Teachings, because this brother be dropping it, right? Minister Zumbi Shawala is dropping it, and so tonight we're being energized, entertained, and educated on what happened with the Harvard study. So, all right, bro, back to you, man.
Okay. All right. Had a little technical difficulty there. I guess you're looking at it as this was done 50 years ago. And they said if we were able to get control of at least 15% of the soul market by 1978, we can dominate the industry. He said that's all they needed was 15%, and they can take it over. Now, I don't know if Jay-Z was talking about this type of takeover, but it was a major one. A very major one.
Well, it kind of reminds me of the song "Who Stole the Soul." The song "Who Stole the Soul." Right. Soul. That's Public Enemy. And in the song, "Here we go, but this time the rhyme gonna ask who did the crime. Then let's get down to the nitty gritty. I want to know who picked Wilson's pocket." That's nice. That's a nice allusion. After he rocked it. Fact, he shocked it. Same kind of thing they threw at James. And what they did to Red was a shame.
Yeah.
The black get, the bigger the feds want. A piece of booty, intentional rape system like we ain't. Paid enough in this BI, that's why I dissed them. I learned we earned, got no concern. Instead, I'm going to do my best Chuck D impression. Instead, we burn, so where's the hell for our return? Plain and simp, the system's a pimp, but I refuse to be a hoe. Who stole the soul? Salute the Public Enemy. They were talking about this back in the day, and we didn't know what they were talking about. We really didn't know what they were talking about. And I guess the Harvard report brings it in. The Harvard report brings it in. All right? So, hey, I want to salute Stephen. Good brother Stephen Pickett says, whoa, I'm not going to say what Stephen said. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. Yo, salute Stephen. He's actually yo, Stephen's on some other stuff, man. He's on some he's yo, the topic for the night is Harvard report. But interesting. Hey, salute to Stephen. If you're not watching the video, if you're listening to this show in audio form, you're gonna miss it. But back to you, good brother. I just did my best Chuck D impression. One of the code keepers noted that I laugh too much on the shows on things that are very important and concerning our community. So if I find something that bothers me, or if I find something funny, or if I'm shocked, I laugh. So I hope I don't offend anybody out there. I laugh a lot, and it's kind of my coping mechanism. So this is not a laughing matter, though. So when I'm laughing, I'm not laughing thinking it's hilarious or that or it's funny. I'm laughing because it's incredulous. Hopefully that makes sense. Back to you, good brother, man. Let's continue learning about the Harvard study.
Yeah, and with yourself having experience in the music industry, uh, if you were to read this yourself, you may find some answers to some questions that you may have had during your run. Okay. Um, One of the things that they talked about, and I'm going to read from the section called Recommended Organization.
Okay.
The analysis of the soul music industry indicates that the following functions will be critical to the success of CRG's soul music group. One, decision making responsibility and authority for talent signings and product acquisition. Implicit in this is the assumption that the group will have an adequate budget. Two, independent evaluation of soul music talent and product. Three, capability for arranging product and coordinating artist activities within the specialized context of the soul music form. Four, establishment and maintenance of beneficial relationships with soul music radio stations and dealers. Five, coordination of soul music sales activities with the existing sales force. And six, integration of the soul music group with other functional activities within Columbia. Now, one piece that I didn't read is the fact that they were in this for the long haul. So they knew they may, you're going to need deep pockets in order to take over an existing market. And they didn't mind that. So, how could a Stax or a Motown compete with the deep pockets of a Columbia record group? It kind of reminds me of that old thing that Jimmy Henchman would tell Pac: before you go to war, get your money right. And it seems like Columbia Record Group had enough money to make whatever mistakes it needed to make in order to gain dominance and control of this industry. Okay. So, and like I said, when
It's
you
interesting.
read this for yourself, yeah. No, go ahead.
And no, I'm just kind of blown away because Columbia decided they were going to take on Stax and Motown and some of the other ones, the smaller labels that weren't really discussed. So we have to understand that business is war.
Right. Well, what they discussed was, because they broke it down into like three categories of record labels. The mom and pop independents, they weren't really worried about. Okay. They felt that the fiercest competition was going to come from Motown, Stax, and Atlantic Records, but primarily Motown and Stax, because I guess, to use a business phrase, they cornered the soul market at the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And what's interesting is, when you look at each record label, Motown was really focused on how do we get our artists to eventually cross over. That wasn't the case with Stax Music. Okay. They said the people will have to come to us because we're not changing for anything. And when you see their roster of talent, now mind you, Stax had to overcome the loss of Otis Redding. And they were blowing up like this. Imagine if Otis Redding were alive in going into the early 1970s. What would Stax have been?
Ooh. Well, of course, we can't really say that it would be that simple, but they did lose a asset
Well, no,
class.
but I think it Yeah, and maybe it's just me, but seeing where Otis Redding was already taking Stax, because remember, Stax, when Otis Redding came on the scene and they saw, they were willing to put the farm behind him and make him the cornerstone or the linchpin of Stax Records. And remember, the sad part is we lost him at 27, just like we lost Jimi Hendrix at 27. Okay, so I'm just thinking, if Stax Records was able to withstand the loss of someone like an Otis Redding and still be a formidable force in the soul music industry, how much more formidable would they've been if Otis were still alive at that time? You see,
Interesting.
and
Interesting
also,
comment. Yeah,
and
interesting.
yeah, and also, you got to remember, Motown and Stax was also moving into the film industry along with the music industry. Okay, so Berry
Right.
Gordy was the one that negotiated the distribution deal with Paramount, and then eventually brought you Lady Sings the Blues. While Stax brought you the documentary Watt Stax, which I heard is listed in a federal archive. It is considered like a historical, cultural, significant film.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
And
So
yeah. So
so so of course, I always come with the empowerment question. How does this
yeah.
free us? As I think it was Sister Bambara
The
that
one
asked that
thing
question,
I
right?
always okay, and I tell people this in the music industry. Okay, the music is only 3 hours, but the business is 24/7. You have to understand not only how the business operates, but its history on how it operated. Okay, how did we go from 8 tracks to cassettes to CDs to DVDs to digital downloads? You know, what role did a college kid named Sean Parker play in destroying the old business model and having this new model emerge, which included this 360 deal? Okay, so you've got to study. That's the number one way you empower yourself. Okay, you can't get on, Hot 97 or Kiss FM crying about how somebody ripped you off. Okay, that's
Megan
not
Stallion.
empowerment.
No, I'm not down to Megan Thee Stallion.
Okay,
I'm a Meg fan. I like the long legs, but she did do
right.
something along that line. Yeah, right. Long legs.
you know,
Uh,
and even groups as successful as Metallica was always crying foul. You know, where they still wanted things a certain way, but everybody was just passing them by. And then when the technology came to where you can, from your laptop, where you didn't need to shop a deal. Okay, in a way, there's really no excuse. But I tell people that you really have to understand.
yeah, we really have to understand this stuff. We really have to understand this stuff. So, to bring a little context, just to bring a little information into the ether here, who is this person? Is anybody recognizing this person? I'm going to give up the goods. So, Harry Pace, light-skinned brother, Harry Pace, started the first black major record label in the United States. The name of his record label was Black Swan Records. All right. So we kind of had to bring up Harry Pace and Black Swan Records to get to the point where there is a Stax and a Motown, and there were a couple of others as well. But let me bring the ancestor back into our remembrance. First black-owned record label in the United States, Black Swan Records. Right. Harry Pace.
You know.
Had to just drop that just to bring that into the ether. But go ahead, brother.
Wow.
Continue.
Yeah, and another thing that is revealed in the Harvard report is this. Because a lot of black artists felt confined by basically being, labeled as quote unquote black artists or soul artists. That's why when you go back into the history of radio, there was a segment that they would use at night, like 11 o'clock, midnight, and they would play what was called race music.
Right.
That's what it was called. It was called race music. Yes. Okay. So even black artists couldn't get, And so when Chuck D says, "In the daytime radio scared of me, 'cause I'm mad 'cause I'm the enemy," he wasn't just talking about Public Enemy. He was talking about those black.
Yeah. Chuck D was really, one thing about Chuck D is he gave up a lot of information in regards to earlier music. He was like always giving a shout out and a throwback. Chuck D was always giving a shout out and a throwback in an educational manner. So we always were learning something new. He was the first person he was the first person that I heard say, supporter of Chesimard. Supporter of Chesimard. And I was like, who's Joanne Chesimard? And of course I couldn't Google it back then. I had to go look it up in a dictionary and in a thesaurus. And so Chuck D has always had that throwback style that was always tapping you in the head and saying, yo, you don't know everything. You got to learn this. You got to learn this. You got to learn. You must learn. So salute to that. Yeah. But continue, brother. I just wanted to keep bringing out. So
and the.
Yeah, so I had to bring this picture up, man. This was one of the first big hits.
To continue what I was talking about, many black. Yeah. Okay. So many black artists were forced to make a decision whether to stay in the quote unquote black music or soul arena or cross over and sever their ties with black music in order to survive, i.e. Johnny Mathis. I mean, when was the last time you ever heard Johnny Mathis on black radio? Okay.
You have a point there.
So there was
you have a point there. I had to think about that. I had to really think about that. I think I heard Johnny Mathis on adult contemporary radio, i.e. white smooth music, as I was growing up. I don't remember hearing him on the race stations, the predominantly black stations, the WBLS in New York, the WDAO in Chicago, in Cincinnati, Ohio, the WVKO in Columbus, Ohio, the WOWI in Hampton, actually in Norfolk, Virginia. I don't remember hearing Johnny Mathis.
Nah, and it's weird because it's almost like he didn't have a fallback if he failed in that crossover attempt. I mean, even Sam Cooke had a fallback. If he didn't make it with crossover music, he always has gospel as a safety net. And Johnny Mathis didn't even have that.
Safety net. Okay, well, I'll let you roll with that. I'll let you roll with that. That's interesting.
I call it a safety net because that was Sam Cooke's and Al Green's foundation was gospel music before they went secular. Okay, so it seems like that they could always go back to gospel when the secular wasn't moving because that was their foundation anyway. Okay.
Now, what I think interesting about Johnny Mathis is looking at his pictures. You know, one of the ways that Johnny was able to go mainstream a little easier is he may have been black, but he didn't have in his early days, you can say, okay, he's a brother with a conk, a CONK, which is, straightening your hair. Right. But later on, it wasn't. Now he's kind of looking like Tony Orlando. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right, and I'm like, Tony, okay. So now we got the little Prince Maxwell thing going on right here. I kind of dig that. That was a good look.
Yeah, right.
But here we are again, like he's Miami Vice.
Well, let me take. I'm gonna have to walk that back a little bit because I remember Johnny Mathis doing a duet with Stacey Lattisaw. Okay. And that may have been the only time you would have heard him on black radio. That's the only time I can think of. So it's almost like Johnny Mathis almost had to play the colorism game just to survive.
Hey, brother, are you mixing up Johnny Mathis and Johnny Gill?
No.
Johnny Mathis and Stacey Lattisaw.
Too much, too little. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, I think you're mixing that up,
Denise
bro.
Williams. Let me.
Okay, possibly. Okay, we'll look up Denise Williams. All right, because I see Stacey Lattisaw and Johnny Gill, but so we'll go with Johnny Mathis and Denise Williams. Oh, they did a version of "You're All I Need to Get By." They did "Too Much, Too Little, Too Late to Ever Try Again." Okay. Oh, they say "Yes, It's Over," which was a part of the song "Too Much, Too Little, Too Late." All right. Oh, they did an album together. Okay. That's what friends are for. Incredible. Coño. All right. Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. It was Denise Williams and Johnny Mathis.
Okay.
So, yeah, we both stand corrected.
Okay. Right, because I think that was the only time I would ever hear Johnny Mathis on anything resembling black radio was in a duet. I never heard him as a solo artist on black radio.
Interesting. What was his background? Was he Cape Verdean, or was he one of the Afro-Latinos back in the day?
What's that?
Was he Cape Verdean or maybe Afro-Latino or one of the Afro-Asians? I can't remember. That's a question I may want to check into. All right. Johnny Mathis background. All right. We'll do the Wicca. We'll do the Wicca. We'll do the Wicca.
So what is Mr. Mathis's background here?
I don't know.
Let's see.
I really don't know.
What did you find about his background?
I'm looking it up now. So
Okay.
we're doing
See if
all
I
of
can
this
take
in
a,
real time.
oh, okay.
We're doing all of this in real time.
On the fly.
I think he was born here in the States, though. He was born here in the
Yeah,
States.
that's
He
why
was
I'm
definitely
thinking
born here in the
myself.
States. All right, so
Okay.
let's take a gander.
Wait a minute.
Okay,
Pop
yeah, because see,
Brazilian
I
and
do
Spanish
remember him
music.
singing.
Interesting.
I do remember him singing Brazilian music, and
Okay.
John Royce Mathis. Oh, he was born in Texas. Okay, so
Uh, okay.
okay, okay, so he's like most of us here in the United States. Uh, you know,
Texas. Okay.
now of course the term Native American can
Okay.
also mean the Africans who were here.
I would have never guessed.
Okay,
Okay. I I would have never guessed he was from Texas. Wow.
okay. All right, but
Okay.
that's off the beaten path. We were talking about Stax, Motown, and how Columbia,
Yeah.
decimated it. So we just took
What's
a little,
that?
little turn, a little educational
Little
turn.
detour.
All right. So as we round things up, man, you said that the message
Yeah.
was
Okay.
the lesson here is, what do we walk away with, bro?
The lesson here is the lesson here is well, actually a couple of things. One, know the game. Even as an indie artist, you must know this game. And you must in a lot of ways, and I'm kind of going back to when we talked about the 360 deal, know create as many streams of income as you can as an indie artist. Okay, because as we talk about empowerment, I think we need to add another word into that, independence, because it looks like the music industry is being decentralized, kind of like the way it was before the big four was taking over the music game. I'm talking Sony, uh, Vivendi, Universal, EMI Capital, and I forgot what the other one was. Warner Music Group. Okay, those were the big four at the time, and they just pretty much sucked up all the other labels. Now it's being decentralized to where with the technology you can just create your own label, and with the digital downloads have your own distribution. So it's really about not just being involved in the production of the product, if you will, but you also have to understand the distribution and understand the revenue model of the numerous ways that you can make money from your talent as an artist. Okay. Uh, it includes owning and controlling your catalog, your masters, your publishing. I was listening to a good interview with Sir Mix-a-Lot, and he says that he actually makes more from his publishing than from his royalties because he understood the game well enough to where he could put things on automatic pilot and checks would just roll in because he didn't limit himself to being a one-trick pony, just, being my posse's on Broadway in Seattle. Okay. So he learned the game well enough to where he's not destitute. And that's the thing that I really want to drive home with you artists who want to get into the music game. Know the game.
Know the game, and make sure you have a great internet connection as well. And so, one of the ways you can know the game is by reaching out and researching artists like Johnny Mathis, Denise Williams, Stax Records. Let's do the knowledge. Let us do the knowledge, do the research, and be ye informed so you can be empowered. Be ye informed so you can be empowered. Any last words, Zumbi? Any last words? Yeah, this stream is not working out so well. So last words, bro.
Yeah, yeah. I would just say, please pick up a copy of this book, The Anatomy of a Record Company, and read the Harvard report so you can understand why black radio is the way that it is today. Okay, this document was written over 50 years ago, and we're still feeling the residual effects of what that all black marketing group at Columbia Record Group did.
I also like the fact that it was a group. A bunch of folk got together and decided we're going to change the world. And they did.
Mm-hmm.
So put your team together.
Yeah.
Put your team together. Get on code.
Mm-hmm.
Put your team on code. And get to business. Get to working. Get to making those things happen. Be creative. Own your ish. And be fly. Check. All right, so you've been checking out Precise Teachings. I'm sorry, I keep saying Precise Teachings because I keep getting that KRS-One song in my head. Precise in teaching and very clear speaking, ridiculous space, aggravating trouble, rebel, renegade, must stay paid. Ooh, did KRS just give you the game? KRS just dropped a new album as well. Speaking of new, this isn't new, but it might be new to you. So go pick up your copy of G.O.A.T, The Gospel of Afro-nomic Theology, written by this dude right here, Minister Zumbi Shawala. Go ahead and get your copy. You'll be glad you did. And, hey, internet is not working. It's not our friend tonight. But if you pick up a copy of the book will be your friend. The book will be your friend. So pick up your copy of G.O.A.T. Here it is. Pick up your copy of G.O.A.T. And Zumbi, I was just about to say we out of here, brother.
Yeah. Okay.